As most of you know, we have lost our rights incrementally over decades. There was no single point where the government sat down and passed a law that confiscated all of our rights. Even legislation that enabled vast swaths of authoritarian creep, like the Patriot Act, just opened the door. That law wasn't fully exploited until the late 2000s. What we have been living through is the classic example of the frog in the pot of water, where the heat is turned up until it boils and the frog dies. The frog never jumps out because the change is incremental, and it never notices the danger until it is too late. As much as many of us would like to see a sudden reversal to the tyranny we are experiencing, that is an extremely unlikely event in the near future, and placing all of our hopes on a rapid kinetic change in government only lets the creep continue while we wait and seethe. It is a far more effective strategy to fight back in the same way that we lost so severely over the past several decades. We lost when we let the left shut us up in the workplace, when they successfully made it socially unacceptable for Christians to hold Christian beliefs in Christian churches, when they took control of the schools and made it socially unacceptable to call someone by their biological gender and then made it a punishable offense. The only way we can effectively resist is to be loud, visible, and offensive representations of the truth. Trying not to offend the left is an unwinnable challenge because what offends the left is always changing. We are seeing extremism creep, just like during the French Revolution, where people were killed for not being revolutionary enough or even a hint of monarchist or counter-revolutionary sentiment. Eventually, even the leaders of the revolution were accused and killed by their compatriots because they weren't extreme enough or simply out of personal fear. People accused other people who didn't like them of being counter-revolutionary before that person could accuse them and get them killed. Today, we are seeing the same thing. The left is truly scared of free speech. That is why they crack down. That is why we are seeing Christians preaching outside of gay pride events arrested and social media clampdowns on speech. The way we resist is by being absolutely unbothered by their censorship and authoritarianism. We be bold, loud, and incessant in our protests and refusal to use newspeak. We got into this situation by being quiet because silence on our side emboldens the left. What most people don't realize is that the left is actually driven by fear. They fear what they can't control. So people who grow their own food, speak their mind, and refuse to bow to the ideology of the modern elite legitimately scare them. We also need to be smart about how we use our free speech. Avoid trigger words that get Autobots to ban you so that when they do ban you, you can literally point to the only thing you said being purely political and thus constitutionally protected. I've seen people getting banned after telling someone to self-delete and then claim censorship. As much as I sympathize as I am a free speech absolutist, I can understand from the social media company's perspective why they wouldn't want that on their platform. The problem comes in that such rules are typically enforced unequally. So while we should try to work within the system on social media, we have no such restrictions in real life. The constitutional protections of free speech allow you to bring lawsuits against private organizations and law enforcement far easier when they try to physically stop you from speaking, unlike digital censorship, which is by its nature non-physical. Now, while putting our opponents in a position where the only way to shut us up is physical force is an effective tool, we can't fall prey to the leftist idiocy of standing in roadways and gluing ourselves to pavement. All that does is put yourself in danger without getting your message out there. Force the left to violate the law by following the law to the letter yourself. This allows you to paint the injustice in broad, bright neon letters that are easy to share and will in turn provide vast amounts of resources to use in the digital space. All this assumes things are only as bad as they are now or slightly worse. There are people far more qualified than myself when it comes to what to do if we find ourselves in a kinetic situation where physical self-defense becomes necessary. I'm sure people will make suggestions in the comments. What I want to convey is that non-violent resistance within the law is the most effective way to force the country back on track. That can only happen if we are loud and obvious in our application of the First Amendment. We must force the tyrants to move first. It is easy for many of us to talk about self-sacrifice in terms of war and physical conflict. It is much harder to talk about self-sacrifice in terms of civil obedience and disobedience. While I myself am a libertarian, many of my friends and followers are conservatives, and conservatives, by their nature, prefer order and follow the rules. I used to be a conservative myself and still feel that pull. It is antithetical to us to consider risk getting arrested because we refuse to shut up when an event organizer or police officer orders us to. But we must refuse that illegal order. We must screenshot everything that gets banned and pick people to compile or at least store all First Amendment violations. We must compile all violations of our Second and Fourth Amendments. We must make their tyranny obvious, and when they cross the line, as they have just done in Michigan, we must be ready to do what is right despite unconstitutional laws. Michigan just passed a law banning misgendering someone. Washington. All three of these are unconstitutional, and we must act accordingly. If they get violent when enforcing these laws, then we win. Tyrants hide behind the religion of woke nowadays. We must strip away their ability to hide behind their twisted version of morality and reveal their authoritarianism for what it is. But here is the kicker. If we stand firm, it may not even get to that point. Because again, the tyrants fear what they can't control. They fear homesteaders, survivalists, and veterans. If they track everything online, and you know they do, then they see all of our Boog and Fortunate Son memes and videos. They know how many of us are willing to water the tree, and they are scared. It is my belief that this fear is what forced them to take it slow. They would like nothing more than to simply implement full tyranny, but they fear you. They know what would happen if they stopped using the frog method, and so long as they are using it, we can do the same. We can push back in small increments, force them to defend their actions in court while the courts still have enough decency to admit we are right. And if that doesn't work and nothing will stop the spread of tyranny, we will have the moral confidence of knowing we did everything right. There is nothing more powerful than knowing that your cause is just and you did everything you could to avoid a great conflict. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.